Well, good evening, my math friends. If it is indeed evening when you're watching this, it's Monday evening right now. I just got back from my yoga class a little bit ago. Feel great class today from yoga. But I was thinking on the way home, our class in math class today I thought was a little bit just didn't we didn't get into a good flow. I felt like so I had a couple thoughts. I was thinking, what can we do? So a couple of things I wanted to share with you about that. Let me start with one that's a little bit less related to today's class, just more in general. That's the thought about homework and turning it in. And here's my thought on that. Really think based on how things have been going so far, and comparing that to the last 4 years, what I've been teaching this class, I think it's better to just turn it in, to do it on a separate sheet of paper. Don't do it in your notebook and rip it out. I just use paper. I can give you paper if you don't have it. But there's just something about psychologically, physically, like to write it, to turn it in. I get some time to look at it. I'm not going to lose it. I can learn, but I can turn it back to you. Excuse me. So I do think that just it's a little more powerful and maybe a little better organized for me. Because right now, when I'm like most of you guys are doing it in your notebooks, and I try to come around and look at your notebook and remember, and then it's like maybe it's not ready that day, and then you feel, oh, you're gonna show it to me anyways, even though it's really not done. So I would recommend that. I think the other thing I noticed is that some of you, when you're doing your notebook, there's like a psychological tendency to want to keep it tight because you don't want to use up too many of your pages. So you start to get small with your writing, your problems start to get smaller and smaller. That's really, I really want to advise you not to go down that road. You're actually going to help save the earth by using more paper. Think about that. Because as long as the paper is not burned, if you just use it and go in the landfill, like you're like sequestering carbon that way. And then we grow more trees, and then we can get carbon out of the atmosphere by using paper. So this is just a little joke, but basically, I think your notebooks will flow better if you just reserve them for the notes. You take notes, you do an example, you have it very cleanly labeled. This is section, 1A, this is 1A2, 1A3, what is about. This is about completing the square. This section is about, discriminant. And then the separate, because when you mix it all together, it's going to become this big mishmash. You got like a few notes, and then all of a sudden you're doing the problems, and then more notes. So that's just my thought. If you feel compelled, though, you're like, no, I really want to keep it in my notebook, that's fine. But what I'd like to try to do to avoid that whole, like, I'm going to go around the room and try to look at it and decide, whether you got it done or not, is make a Google form. And then, like, when the homework's due, you can just go online real quick, put your name in, I got it done, or I'm not done yet, I need another day, whatever it is. And it'll just be completely the honor system. But that way I won't have to take time to like go around and look at it and try to remember. But it will be 100% honor system. So you've got to make sure if you do that, don't be tempted to be like, well, I'll just say I did it just so I get the points and I'll do it later. If you didn't get it done, just say you didn't get it done. And then, I'll put a 0 in for your grade, but then you'll get it done. It'll be motivation for you. So that's my first thought. My second thought was about today's class in particular. I was telling one of the math. I have a couple math professors. One math professor actually, who comes to my class, and then I have another mathematician who's he works, but he graduated with a math major at MSU. And I was talking to him about our class today. I was like, you could tell kids came in, everybody was all like, they're pretty upbeat, they're chatty. Then as soon as class started, it's like a veil went down. You could just feel people, and you started to do math, and it's like this like mask comes over people. It's just and he, instantly he does like, they're making it harder on themselves. He like knew it right away. He could, that's just a common thing in math. People just kind of like, almost like you turn off a little bit. And I think with you guys, part of it is, I think maybe you're a little used to, it's almost like your math has been like you've been following recipes. Like, here's how you make lasagna. First you do this, then you do this, you add this, you do that, you put it in the oven, you bake it, it's done. And so you get the recipe, and then you get to use it 4 or 5 times. You do a few different problems, but you keep using that recipe. And now all of a sudden you're faced with these problems like today, like with that sign chart, and you're like, well, why are they making this? Why do we need that? It's all extra. That's extra. But you're not used to like starting to do these problems. It is extra because you've done discriminant before, probably at some point, but it's been very straightforward, very simple. Is it positive? Is it negative? Is it zero? And now all of a sudden they're adding like layers of problems, like they're turning the discriminant itself into a quadratic. So then the discriminant, and it has multiple solutions. And so you try to let go of that feeling of like this should be very straightforward. It should be almost like step by step, because the problems won't be like that. More and more the problems are a little extra, because they want you to, instead of just solving and applying some type of formula, some formulaic step by step process, they want you to be creative. They're trying to get you to figure out ways like doing problems with little twists that you have never really seen before. And there isn't necessarily just a recipe that you're going to follow to do that problem. You really are have to sit down. It's very unique. It's like getting to know someone. You got to just sit down with them and talk to them and listen to them and go back and forth. And that's how you work with these problems. You got to sit down. Wait a minute. Think about it. What are they trying to? What am I trying to do? What can I do? What do I know that's going to help me? And you start to work through it. It almost will start to become like each problem's a little bit unique. I mean, yes, it's math, so there will be patterns and there will be some procedures that you can fall back on. You'll want to have those for sure, but it's still that mindset or that energy of like you're grappling, you're wrestling with this thing, and it actually it's not that it's extra, it's that it's actually you need that to change yourself. What's happening is the process of you struggling with it, working with it, thinking about it, getting confused about it, it starts to change you inside. It changes the way you see things. It really, on a neuronic, your levels, your neurons, it rewires your brain. It really will. And so that's what the deep math will start to do. It'll start to get you to see things from another perspective, and you think a little more logically. That's really what's ultimately the purpose. People say, well, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do this in the real world? How does this apply? When are we going to ever find discriminants that are quadratics that have to do sign charts? That's just silly. Well, that's not what's important. What's important is you're just working with a problem that is not it's not just like straight in the box. This is how you do it. So hopefully that makes a little more sense and encourages you to not don't waste your energy by like thinking about, well, why do we have to do this? This isn't necessary. Adding that little layer of resistance to it. You stay open. It's not going to make the problem go away, but it's going to be more pleasant to work with it, and you're not going to waste energy with like putting up like a little resistance or a little wall. So just talk, communicate, let me know in class, like, I'm confused about this, but stay with it. Because today I felt a lot of people just like tuning out, turning away, like, this isn't right, I don't have to do this, why should we do this? So just stay open and inquisitive. Ask questions, I guess. So hopefully, I know this is a little long, but if you watched it all the way to the end, extra credit for you. Send me an email with the word ice cream, because I'm finishing my ice cream right now. Don't tell anybody though. But if you did watch it all the end, send me the email, ice cream. I'll give you a little extra credit. Otherwise, peace out.